Good evening, everyone. It's such a privilege to be here. As Kevin was saying, my name is Muzoon. I am a Syrian refugee. I came from Syria. I think now all of you know Syria because unfortunately what's happening in Syria, it's war and conflict and it's awful. But let me start with my own story and about my life before the war and to let you know about the reality of Syria and the country of my, the reality of my country. Actually, when the war began in Syria, our life changed upside down. Before the war, we had a normal life, like you. We were going to school, we were playing with our friends, we were visiting our relatives, we were thinking about our future, we were doing our daily activities without worrying about anything in our lives. Of course, we had the challenges, but we had hope, we had peace, we had safety. All those things were in my country, Syria, the country of education, the country which has educated people, the country which is considered one of the base of civilizations. It is a country which has actually historical places. But when the war began, everything changed upside down. We had no access to education. We couldn't get in our basic needs like food. We were worried all the time. At any moment, maybe you will die. You will lose your life. You cannot do anything. Just you have to worry, or you maybe to think if there will be bombings today, if there will be battles today, maybe you cannot go to your work. Just you have to think about that in the wartime. But when we realized, after living 2 years in the war in Syria, my dad said, it is going to be really hard to live in Syria. You will lose your education. Also, my father was working as a teacher and he couldn't go to his work as a teacher. Then when he lost his job and the area where we're living, it was really dangerous to stay, where there was bombings, there was fighting. So my dad said, we want to flee. When he said that, I really was really sad because I said, if I will leave my country, maybe I will lose my education. I don't know anything about living in a refugee camp. It's a new thing to me. I was just at the age of 13. And when he said that we want to leave everything behind, it was the hardest decision in my life. I didn't want to leave my friends, my relatives, my country where I was born. But what made me really sad, it is my school. I was worried if I cannot continue my studies in the refugee camp. I realized if I lost my education, I would lose everything in my life. It would be the end of my story. But we had no choice but to flee. When we left, my dad said, you have just to pack with you the most important things, the things that you need most in the camp. We cannot carry heavy things because we are going to walk. We don't know what to do in the way to Jordan because it was a bit dangerous when it was war to flee to another country. I said, yes, I'm not going actually to pack anything with me. But I said, and I told myself just to pack my books, my school's books. They were more than actually over 10 books. I was at the grade 9, and we were studying. We had many subjects. Oh, I said I will just pack my books. And I didn't actually pack anything else, just my books. So when we were on the way to Jordan, we had to walk for 3 hours to get to the border. And my dad saw me. I was actually struggling to carry my bag. Of course, it is heavy because there were many books. So yeah, actually, when my dad came, he said, do you need help? I said, yes, I need help. And when he carried the bag, he said, it is really heavy. What did you bring with you, Muzoon? I said, my books. He said, you are really crazy. I told you, don't, pack these things with you because you don't need these books in Jordan and we don't know what's going to happen in this new place. I said, if I didn't find a school, I will study by these books because I know the value of education. I know without education, I cannot do anything in my life. I cannot achieve my hopes and dreams. And I cannot actually achieve anything. It is going to be the end of my story. And that's what I realized when I was just at the age of 13. So we arrived to the camp where we had many challenges. It was really a tough life. We had no access to electricity. We had to bring water from a very distant place. We lived in tent where we had to do everything in a tent. You have to sleep. You have to do all your activities in one tent. And there was no electricity, of course. There was no internet, and there is nothing. But for me, I didn't care about those challenges and what I was thinking about the school. So I asked the people there, where is the school? Can I continue my studies in a refugee camp? And when they said yes, that moment it changed my life. I knew by education I can change this difficult situation. When I went to school at the camp, and it was my first day there, I expected every child in the camp loves the school and wants to go to school, and they are really pleased to come back to education and to have opportunity to study. But unfortunately, I noticed and I saw parents, girls and boys who don't believe in education, who thinks education is not a priority when we became refugees. And I know their lives are really tough because they had war and they are suffering in the camp. They think that it is the end of their lives and they don't want to study. But that made me really sad and really shocked, because when I saw those people who don't believe in education, I knew it is going to be a disaster for my country and for the people themselves. So if they don't study, if they didn't get an education, then that will affect their future. That will make them really weak without education. So I told myself to make a change. In general, we think we are young, or everyone thinks that I don't have the ability to make a change. I am not strong enough to make a change. Or I think about others to start and make a change, or to come to me and to change me, or to advise me to study, for example, or to go to school. But for me, I told myself, I have to make a change. I have to convince them to believe in education and to consider education as a priority. Because as a person who believes in education, and as I consider education as a priority, I consider it important for others. For example, my country doesn't need just to Muzoon as an educated person. It needs the whole generation. Every child should go or must go to school to have education and to have knowledge, to be able to go back and rebuild our country. Syria doesn't need to people who lost their hopes. It needs doctors, it needs engineers, it needs teachers, it needs those people who really can rebuild Syria in the future. So I said, I want to go and to speak with them and to go from tent to tent and to speak in my classrooms at the school and to speak with every person at any time and any place to convince them to believe in education. And that's what I did actually. I was going, speaking with people, and I was telling them about the importance of education and the value of learning and going to school. And if we have a chance to go to school, we have to take this chance, because education is such an essential part in our lives. If we lost education, we would lose everything in our lives. Because education is the only thing which gives everything. It is the way to make peace. It is the way to have hope. So without education, we cannot do anything. And most importantly, for me, when I left my country, when I left everything behind, I didn't flee my home of things of my making. The war, I didn't make war. And it is not my fault to lose my rights. I don't accept war to take of me my rights, especially my right of education. I don't accept people who forced me to flee my home, to be happy when I am not an educated person. I want to prove to everyone that even if I have challenges in my life, I have to face those challenges to make a difference. Not only for me. When I talk, I don't talk about Muzoon, of course. I talk about every child all over the world. Of course, not only Syrians. Those who cannot go to school, who don't have access to education, not only education, to other rights like to have access to food, to have access to clean water, for example, and many things. So when we talk, we don't talk about me, because now I represent them, I represent their challenges. So that's why I started to prove to everyone in the world and to show everyone in the world that even if we became refugees, even if we had the challenges in our lives, we still have hope, we still have dreams, we have to achieve them. But we need you to help us, to stand with us, and to hear our voices. And that's what I'm doing, to let each voice in the world to be heard and to prove that they deserve our attention and they deserve to help them. So after living 3 years in the camps, and all my activities actually drew attention to many organizations, including UNICEF, and many people when I was speaking also in media to talk about refugees and other issues in the camp. Of course, about my campaign about education, I became a known person. So then I became a friend with Malala Yousafzai, who also an education activist and who is considered a symbol of education. We became friends when she came actually and visited the Atari camp at that time. And the people in the camp actually was calling me Malala of Syria. And I was so, I was so proud to have that name because Malala is such a remarkable young woman who did, and she's still, of course, doing lots of things for education and to fight for these valuable rights. We have shared goals, and we did lots of things together when I came to UK. So after I lived in the camps, I came to UK. And now I'm with my family. We are living in a Newcastle with the tough accent, with the Geordie accent, as Kevin actually was saying. And yeah, we came here, but when I started my new life here, and I also started to think about my education, about my university, about my knowledge, of course, I haven't forgotten those who are still behind me. I feel so lucky to have access to education. I feel lucky to go to school every day. Also, I feel lucky to have my family with me. But what about those who cannot go to school, who are still living in camps, who are still suffering to have access to their rights? And of course, it's education, one of the rights that the people and the children all over the world cannot have access to it. So when I came here, also, I started again. I use my voice as much as I can to speak out like what I'm doing today, and to also to let people know about refugees, because unfortunately many people in UK, in Europe, in US, they don't know anything about refugees. They don't know about their challenges. Maybe we hear a refugee, it's just a name or the meaning of something that a person who fled a home, or a person who has no rights, just he needs help all the time. This is not right. I try to tell people about the reality of a refugee. A refugee, in the past, I was thinking it is a shameful thing to be a refugee. But I want just to say that a refugee is really a strong person. I don't say that because I am a refugee, but because a refugee is a person who really wanted actually to flee from Torah, who wanted to flee from dangerous places to start a new life. Because the refugee is a person who believes in life and believes that he has a mission in this world to do or to play. So when we fled our homes, we fled with our hopes as well. So that's what I'm trying to actually tell the people, tell world leaders, decision makers, anyone who cares to help those who are suffering right now. So after doing many activities with Malala, as I was saying before, and after that, I started again with UNICEF. First, I have traveled with them to Chad, which is a country in Africa. And Chad is one of the countries actually which has lack of resources, lack of education. Many children, especially girls, cannot go to school. So when I went there, I was really pleased to hear stories from those people. And even though there were actually many challenges, I found hope. I found people who really want to build their countries, people who want to go to school, despite all the challenges that they have. So Chad, it was one of the missions and one of the experiences actually I really loved. And now I'm trying also to raise the voice of children in Chad all over the world. So afterwards, after traveling with UNICEF to Chad, they appointed me as their youngest goodwill ambassador and first refugees who becomes actually a goodwill ambassador for UNICEF. And now I'm a global one to fight for education, for children's rights, and I'm traveling with them all over the world. My mission is to represent those who don't have voice, who are voiceless and cannot speak in front of you, for example, today, who cannot represent themselves. So I hope my story can make a difference for their lives. I hope what I'm doing that could help them, because they really don't want to be just a title as a Goodwill Ambassador or just an activist by a name. I really want to make a difference in their lives, because it is really important actually to represent the children, to talk about their issues, but most importantly, we have to help them, and I will do that forever. And of course, my studies will help me a lot to fight more, and I hope that actually to do something for those children. And this started with you today, and hope every one of you thinks more about those who are suffering, and we hope to take seriously these issues, because maybe your voice, your help, maybe just a message from you of hope, or welcoming a refugee, or giving an opportunity, it makes a huge difference in lives of many of the children. So thank you so much.